temple. Ladies and gentlemen, please remember that this model was built by very famous Israeli professor for archaeology, Professor Michael Aviona. Remember that the model was built in the year 1966. Ladies and gentlemen, please let me remind you that in the year 1966, Jerusalem in those days was still divided between Israel and Jordan. In those days, all of the eastern side of the city still was in the hands of Jordan. So in those days, yet for Israeli archaeologists, they had no chance to do any excavations on the eastern side of the city. Remember, only June 1967, reunification of Jerusalem. Only since then, Israeli archaeologists could start a big research here in Jerusalem. So this model was built in 1966 before the reunification of Jerusalem. Ladies and gentlemen, the model is built in scale of 1 to 50, which means every 1 meter that we see in the model, these were 50 meters in the reality. The model goes according to the same direction and the same topography as it is in the reality, which means everywhere where in this model we can see a hill or a mountain or a valley. In the reality, in those places, we have mountains, hills, and valleys. Now, in the model, the area which is closer to us shows that this is the northern side of the city. Ladies and gentlemen, indeed, in the reality, this is the way to the north. Okay? The area which is down that way shows that that is the southern side of the city. In the reality, over there, this is the way to the south, right side of the model. And in the reality, this is west, left side in the model, and in the reality, this is the way to the east. Ladies and gentlemen, today we know that 99.99% of what you see here is correct. Or I can put it this way, all of what you see here is correct, except one small tiny mistake. Later on we will see and understand the reason for that mistake. And remember that in the 70s, many of the archaeologists and the scholars in Israel started to believe that maybe Professor Michael Aviona was a prophet. They say to him, listen, when you built this model, yet we did no excavations in Jerusalem. We had no idea how the city was look like. Now, you made this model so accurate, only one mistake. Listen, you must be a prophet. How did you know what we will find? How did you know the location of the walls and the buildings? You knew, even before we started to dig, what we are going to find. Listen, you must be a prophet. At that time, Professor Michael Aviona used to laugh, and his answer for those who asked him said, calm down everybody. Of course that I am not a prophet. He said to them, I simply had an excellent guidebook. I read the book of Josephus Flavius. When Josephus wrote about Jerusalem, he described Jerusalem in a very clear, accurate way. This was the guidebook that guided Michael Aviona when he came to build the model. Ladies and gentlemen, in 1966, the model was not built here. In those days, the model was built in the gardens of the Holy Land Hotel here in Jerusalem. But later on, in 2000, Holy Land Hotel went bankrupt, and Israel Museum said, hey, before you destroy the hotel and the property, we want to save the model. So Israel Museum bought the model. They cut it into 100 pieces. They put the pieces on big heavy trucks, brought the pieces here, put all the pieces together and rebuilt the model here. So we have the model here since 2007. Now, please follow me. Now we start our. What we are going to do, again, we are going to start from here, from the western side, and we go all the way around. Ladies and gentlemen, if you take a look over there you see that there are three very tall towers. Yes? We were there. You remember that Tower of David? Yes? So this is how Tower of David was look like 2000 years ago. Over there, that is the citadel that was built by King Herod. Soon we will talk more about that citadel. Ladies and gentlemen, from the citadel to the right, you see the beginning of a wall. We're going to call it wall number 1. From the citadel, if we go north and east, you see there is another wall. We're going to call it wall number 2. And this one that we see here, we're going to call it wall number 3. Ladies and gentlemen, wall number 1, this is the wall that was built during the time of Ezra and Nehemiah. Remember, 6th century BC, after Cyrus' declaration, when Cyrus allowed the Jews to return back to Jerusalem, Ezra and Nehemiah guided the Jews from the exile back to Jerusalem. And when they brought the people back to Jerusalem, they began to rebuild the wall of the city. So they rebuilt wall number 1. So 515 BC, beginning of the time of the second temple, Jerusalem was only, and the word only, I emphasize in big red capital letters, Jerusalem was only the area that was within wall number 1. Okay, all of what you see here did not exist in the beginning of the time of the second temple. So beginning of second temple, only wall number 1. Ladies and gentlemen, from the beginning of the time of the second temple, okay, 515 BC, until the time of King Herod, 1st century BC, more and more people wanted to come and to build their houses in Jerusalem. What was the problem? The problem was that at some point, no more space to build more houses within the wall. So slowly, people began to build their houses north of the wall in the area that back then was considered as outside the city. One of the projects of King Herod, 1st century BC, was to build a newer wall around the outsiders in order to include everybody within the new part of the city. So wall number 2 that we see, this is the wall that was built by Herod, 1st century BC. Now, no, we are talking wall number 2. Now they are living, so let's occupy this place. Ladies and gentlemen, from the time of King Herod until the year 63 AD, same thing happened. More and more people wanted to come to Jerusalem and to build their houses. The problem was not enough space. So slowly, people began to build their houses north of wall number 2 in the area that was considered as outside of the city. In the year 63 AD, during the time of King Agrippa III, he began to prepare Jerusalem for the big revolt, so he decided to build wall number 3. So wall number 3 was built, I repeat, 63 AD as the preparations for the big revolt. Ladies and gentlemen, in 66 AD, when the big revolt began, here in Jerusalem there were 3 walls. Wall number 1, this is originally from the time of Ezra and Nehemiah. Wall number 2 that was built by King Herod, and wall number 3 that was built by Agrippa III. This is one of the things that can explain why it took the Romans 4 years to occupy Jerusalem. Now, you see this gate right in front of you? This is Jaffa Gate. You remember when we went to see Tower of David? We went in and out through the Jaffa Gate. So friends, this is how Jaffa Gate was look like in the year 66 AD. Now, what else do we see here? Ladies and gentlemen, straight ahead, you can see these beautiful houses with the red roofs. You see beautiful courtyards. This is what we call in Hebrew, Ha'ir Ha'elyona, upper city. Upper city this was the area where the very rich, where the very wealthy people of Jerusalem used to live. You see beautiful houses, big, comfortable, beautiful courtyard. Now, this is why right behind the wall, you see this complex, this is Herod's palace. Herod had another private palace here in Jerusalem, so this is Herod's palace. Herod needed to defend the palace, so you can see the walls built by King Herod around the palace. And on the northern side, you can see the citadel that was built for protection. Now, in the citadel, you see three watchtowers. As we said, the watchtower to the left, King Herod named after his best friend, a man called, after his brother, a man called Petzael. The one to the right, Herod named after his best friend, a man called Hippicus, and the one in the middle was named after his most beloved wife, a woman called Miriam. So Petzael, Miriam, Hippicus. Nowadays, the name Tower of David refers to this complex. Ladies and gentlemen, nowadays, over the remains of King Herod's palace, this is where we have the Armenians quarter of the old city, Jerusalem. Now, what else we see here? Over here, you see the beginning of a big valley. This is the beginning and the continuation of the Hinnom Valley. So, Hinnom Valley begins near Jaffa Gate, and from there it goes all the way south. Now, let's go down. We see continuation of the Hinnom Valley. Now, in the model over here, you can see this hill. This is Mount Zion. You remember in the past few days, few times, we saw Mount Zion. This is Mount Zion. Now, you see that 2,000 years ago, Mount Zion was within the walls of the city. Nowadays, Mount Zion is outside of the walls of the old city. Okay, the wall of the old city of today comes from Jaffa Gate all the way to here. In this area, the wall of the old city of today goes east. This is why nowadays Mount Zion is outside of the walls, but back in those days, it was within the wall of Jerusalem. What else? We see from here, you see this big white monument. It looks like if there is a small pyramid on top. This is King David's tomb. So this is how King David's tomb was look like 2,000 years ago. Now, let's continue further down. Okay, friends, from here, again, we see the continuation of the Hinnom Valley. Now, down there, you see there is a junction. In the junction, if we go north, over there you see there is another very long, deep valley. Over there, that is the Kidron Valley, which is also known as the Jehoshaphat Valley or the Valley of the Kings. Ladies and gentlemen, in that case, in the reality, what mountain we have east of the Kidron Valley? You tell me. Mount of Olives, exactly. So Mount of Olives and the Kidron Valley. And over here, you see there is another small valley. You see small bridges that cross the valley. This is the Tyropoeon Valley, also known as the Cheesemakers Valley. Now, down here, where we see the junction, we have the meeting point of Hinnom Valley with the Cheesemakers Valley with the Kidron Valley. Ladies and gentlemen, from here we can see the one and the only mistake that Professor Michael Aviona made in his model. If you please take a look straight ahead, over there you see a big semi-circle building. You see some arches and columns. That's a theater. Remember, until today, no evidence for theater, again, in this part of the city. Now, why Professor Michael Aviona decided to build a theater over there? In order to see the answer to the question, we need to gather over there. Excellent. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, from here, if you take a look this way, we can see the downtown of Jerusalem. during the time of the second temple, you can see downtown small, tiny, poor houses. You can see all of them had a flat roof. And you see that the houses covered all of the eastern slopes of Mount Zion. Ladies and gentlemen, in his book, Josephus Flavius wrote that if you stand on the southwest corner of the Temple Mount, and from there, if you take a look towards the city, according to Josephus Flavius, looks like a theater. You see it also from here. You see the city? It looks like a theater. Now, in 1966, Professor Michael Aviona understood by mistake that if you stand on the southwest corner of Temple Mount and see the city, then you see a theater. So this is the reason for that mistake. Again, until today, no evidence for a theater here in Jerusalem. Ladies and gentlemen, what else? My dear, please be patient because I am explaining about each and every stone. Now I am about to explain. Now, you can ask me, friends, sincerely, ask me, and I mean it. Ask me any question that you want. I'm here to answer every question, but if you stop me in the middle, anyhow, I'm going to talk about what you're going to ask. We are wasting time. So let me finish, and after I finish, ask me any question that you want. Okay? Well, ladies and gentlemen, over here we can clearly see City of David. Okay? You can see the area which is between these two walls. Looks like a triangular. This is City of David, but this is how the place was look like at the end of the time of the second temple. Now we can see and understand much better about how small and how tiny and how narrow was the area known as City of David. Now let's take a look to the most southern point of City of David and over there, and this is the answer to the question. Yes, you see the pool with the water, that is the pool of Siloam. You remember that a few days ago we saw only the steps going down into the pool. The rest of the pool is under that garden that belonged to the Greek Orthodox Patriarchate. Ladies and gentlemen, somewhere here in the Kidron Valley, this is where we have the Gihon Spring, and from Gihon Spring, King Hezekiah carved the underground Hezekiah, the tunnel to the pool of Siloam, when he sent the water from the spring under the ground to the pool of Siloam that was within the walls of the city. Then he buried Gihon Spring, made it underground. So since then, when people came to Jerusalem and needed water, only place to find water was that pool that was inside the city. Okay, friends, now let's take a few more steps further to the north. Thank you very much. Well, ladies and gentlemen, from here we can clearly see the southern wall of Temple Mount. We were there. Now, you can see the gate to the right. This is the entrance. Today we know that there were 3 arches, not 2, like what we see in the model. So the gate to the right, that was the only way to get in, and the double gate to the left, only way to get out. Now you can see the steps that led the people to the gates. You remember we were on the steps, and a bit south of the steps you see that monument. This is the tomb of prophetess Huldah. So the gates were named after her. Now, further to the left, the southwest corner of Temple Mount, and friends, you see that arch over there? Robinson's Arch. Remember that you saw Robinson's Arch? Robinson's Arch, this is a part of an interchange. You saw it in the model. Now you can see how that interchange was look like, where above it was the royal entrance for Herod and for his best friends. Ladies and gentlemen, from here also we can clearly see Caiaphas' house. Now, you see where is the tomb of David? That monument with the pyramid on top. In front of it, you can see that there is a very big house. That house that you see over there, a very big one, this is Caiaphas' house, and you can see the steps. You remember we saw the original steps. Now you see that the steps, actually they start from top of Mount Zion, go near Caiaphas' house, and you see a continuation of the stairway all the way down to the bottom. So Caiaphas' house and the ancient stairway. Now let's go over there. Friends, over here we can see the Temple Mount. You remember that a few days ago we learned about where and when and how and why King Herod built the Temple Mount. So here it is. Now what do we see here? First of all, that beautiful marble building that you see in the model, this is the second temple. Now, second temple was not built by Herod. Second temple was built by Zerubbabel between the year 535 to 515 BC. But the plaza that we see around it, that's Herod. Now you can see the four big retaining walls built by King Herod around the Temple Mount, and we can see the plaza. Ladies and gentlemen, on the southern side of the Temple Mount, you see the building with the red roof and the columns and the capitals of the columns. This is the Stoa Basileia. This is the place of the money changers and the people who sold white doves. This is where one day Jesus overturned their tables and he said, "You have turned my house into the house of robbers." Now, the plaza that we see here, that was the house of all nations. Jews and non-Jews were allowed to be there. But only Jews were allowed to go into the courtyard, which is in front of the temple. You see the courtyard in front of the temple? Only Jews were allowed to go there. Ladies and gentlemen, around it, from here, you see that there is a small fence. You see the white fence over there. In those days, on that fence, there were warning signs that warned the Gentiles what will happen to them if they will break the law and go into the Jewish courtyard. And then, what will be your punishment? Death. Anaton in Greece. This is not that the Jews will kill you, God will kill you. So over there were these warning signs. Now you see that courtyard in front of the temple, only Jews were allowed to gather there. Now women had to climb up to the roofs of the four corners. Men, they worship from ground floor. Now, straight ahead, we can see the Golden Gate, or the Gate of Mercy, on the eastern side of Temple Mount. Golden Gate was closed for 364 days of the year, only once a year, day of Yom Kippur. That day, only the high priest of Jerusalem, he alone, was allowed to enter the city through that gate. During the time of Jesus' triumphal entry to Jerusalem, he entered through that gate to the city. Ladies and gentlemen, straight ahead, you can see the northwest corner of Temple Mount. You see that big fortress, that is the Antonia fortress, built by Herod, so he and his soldiers could see what was going on Temple Mount. This is how they could control Temple Mount during the time of the high holidays. Now, what else we see here? There are two big pools and water inside. These are the pools of Bethesda, where Jesus healed a paralytic who had been a paralytic for 38 years. From the pools, you see there is a path leading to the wall, and you see the gate, that is the sheep gate, mentioned again in John's Gospel, chapter 5. Ladies and gentlemen, back to the Antonia fortress. Remember that during the time of Jesus, the Roman governor was Pontius Pilate. We learn that during most of the time of the year, Pilate stayed at Herod's palace in Caesarea Maritime, but during the time of the high holidays, Pilate used to come and to stay in the Antonia fortress because he wanted to supervise the Temple Mount. he wanted to see what was going on there. When Jesus came to Jerusalem, he came during the time of the Passover. So we can definitely understand, because of the Passover, this is where Pilate stayed. So when the Bible tells us how early in the morning Caiaphas and the members of the Sanhedrin, all of them came to the decision to give Jesus into the hands of Pontius Pilate, that means that from Caiaphas' house, Mount Zion, they sent Jesus to the Antonia fortress, and over there they gave him into the hands of Pontius Pilate. So, where you see the Antonia fortress, this is where the condemnation and the flagellation took place. This is where Good Friday, 9 a.m., Jesus received his heavy cross. On top of the cross, they wrote in charge against him, Jesus from Nazareth, the King of the Jews. They wrote in charge against him in 3 languages, Hebrew, Aramean, and Greek. And from there, they forced Jesus to carry the cross from Antonia fortress to the place called Hill of Golgotha, Calvary of the Skull. Ladies and gentlemen, in Catholics and in Orthodox tradition, the way that Jesus walked with a heavy cross from place of the condemnation to the place of the crucifixion, this way is known as the way of sorrows, or the Via Dolorosa. So Antonia fortress, where Pilate stayed, this is the beginning of the Via Dolorosa. Where is the end of it? Let's go over there. 2 theories about where is Mount Calvary. Remember, according to the Catholics and according to the Orthodox, they say Mount Calvary is inside, nowadays, Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Where is Holy Sepulchre of today? You see wall number 2. You see that the wall goes south to that corner, and over there it turns right, turns west. Ladies and gentlemen, in front of that section, there is a big empty area. And right in the middle, you can see a big rock. You see that the top of the rock is flat. See the flat top over there. In this model, this is the location of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Okay? So, according to Catholics and Orthodox, crucifixion, burial, and resurrection took place there. According to many Protestants, they believe that crucifixion, burial, and resurrection took place in the Garden Tomb. Where is the Garden Tomb? Straight ahead, you can see that big rock in front of the wall. This is present today Garden Tomb. So this is the place where many Protestants believe that the events happened. Over there, mainly Catholics and Orthodox. Ladies and gentlemen, this way or another, both places at the time of Jesus were outside of the wall of Jerusalem, because during the time of Jesus, this wall number 3, yet did not exist. So both places at that time were outside of the wall. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of our visit here. If there are any more questions that you want to ask me, this is the time and most definitely the place.
So this is Mount Zion?
Mount Zion is over there, where we saw the tomb of King David. Okay, it is